Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you got started in the disability community.
So, um, when I was growing up, I was an athlete. I was a runner, and I loved math and science. And I just decided that I was going to be an engineer and design athletic shoes. So I went to college and got an engineering degree, and I got a job at an athletic shoe company, and I hated it. um, I kind of realized that unless I was going to get a PhD, everything that I was going to work in was all going to be like fashion based and not really scientific. So I was kind of disillusioned with the whole thing, and I left and I got an engineering job, and I didn't like that either. And then I was in a car accident and ended up in physical therapy for that, and started talking to my physical therapist, and it intrigued me. So I started working as an aide in a physical therapy uh, clinic, and then eventually got into PT school. And at that time, I was still thinking that I was going to be, doing orthopedics, working with injuries and and athletes. Um, until I had a clinical rotation with my mentor, Nancy Curtis, who was a pediatric therapist. And things just clicked. And I fell in love with working with the little ones. And the difference between an orthopedic PT and a pediatric PT is that the pediatric PTs lots of times will work with kids with disabilities because, kids don't have injuries as often as, usually we end up with the population of the disabled. So that's how that started. And I got out of school, and I've been working doing home care in um, in the Wake County area for over 20 years
Hmm. That's cool.
now. Yeah.
So like if I could just like ask, what kinds of work do you do in the physical therapy realm? Like what sorts of things are you like doing to like help kids, or like what are you sort of doing?
So what we do is when we first go in, we assess their abilities, and then based on that and their age, um, how to help them get to the next milestone. So if they're not sitting up yet, we'll work on sitting them up, getting their core strength increased, and helping their parents work on that. Because I usually only go once, maybe twice a week. And while I'm not there, I teach the parents to help them where to put their hands, how to hold them, how to help them build up those core muscles so that they can sit. Or if they're not walking yet, I will help them walk. Um, if they need a walker or on other kinds of equipment, I can help them obtain all of that. And I think with my engineering background, sometimes I'm a little bit, that's one of my strengths, is knowing what kind of equipment will help them the most because I have a more mechanical mind. But um, I do rely on the vendors to kind of show me what's new and that, but I have an idea of what I want the equipment to be able to do. So I have a really good working relationship with a lot of the DME vendors around here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
like what kinds of things do you do like outside of physical therapy? Like who are like the key players that you're involved with?
So um, I'm not really involved in a lot of in outside things. I work more directly with my patients. Um, but I teach Tung Soo Do, and sometimes that I can help the kids learn their form a little bit better because I understand the the ergonomics and the anatomy behind it. But I have on occasion, had other uh, other professionals reach out to me because, when I first started working, there were very few physical therapists in the area. So I've been around for a really long time. And so I have sometimes new physical therapists reach out to me. Um, I have worked with Stephanie on her outdoor uh, outreach program to build a few things with that. Um, once my daughters graduate from high school, I'll have a little bit more time. And part of what I want to do is get more involved with helping kids access more equipment, because right now the process for getting equipment is onerous and just complicated. And the the what you have to write notes, and you have to get doctor's approval, and you have to it's and
Hmm.
Medicaid may or may not approve it. So if I had all the time in the world and all the money in the world, I would just buy things and give them out. But that's clearly not viable. But I would love to work towards helping kids access equipment that they could really benefit from.
Hmm. Yeah. So like, what kind of impact does physical therapy have on the disability community? And like, just kind of your perspective as a physical therapist, if you could like talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so um, when a child has a disability, sometimes in the community, that's all that they can see. And it's very discouraging for parents. And because I work in the parent home, in the home with the parents, I hear a lot of the parents' discouragement. And so I like to keep the focus on the progress that the child is making. And it's very, sometimes it's really small and the parents don't see it. So like this week, so and so sat up for 15 seconds, whereas last week he only sat up for 10. That's big. It's a small thing. And people may not realize that, but first it's 10 seconds, then it's 15 seconds, and eventually it's a minute. And then, we're doing things like working on getting into, vaulting into quadruped, or standing and taking, steps, furniture walking. So there's the parents always want, the goal is always, oh, I want Johnny to walk. Well, Johnny can't sit up yet. So let's get Johnny sitting up. I have to help the parents um, see that it's not always the big goals that are important. It's the little goals along the way. And we have to keep them focused on the progress that is being made, because it's not, I always tell parents that you don't decide to run a marathon and then run the marathon the next day. So you have to do the training, you have to work towards it. And it takes a while, especially with kids who may or may not have the ability to access their muscles immediately and with as much facility as as a typically developing person may. So it's there are different challenges for different people, and I keep redirecting the parents to see the positives, and
Hmm.
that's a big part of my job.
Hmm. Yeah. Lastly, how can like physical therapy, improve the lives of people with disabilities and those with other conditions?
So along with accessing, helping them access equipment that can benefit them, um, we can alter how they may access the world, um, with, if they have a particular type of cerebral palsy where they cannot walk as well, we will alter the help them alter the walking pattern so that it's as efficient as possible without being dangerous, so they can, to avoid falls and things like that. um, or we can continue to work on strengthening weakened muscles. We can work on awareness of the environment so that we are not, so we're not going to have them tripping as much. We can I have one of my patients is a huge hockey fan, and he is doing sled hockey. So we help them access different programs like that so that they can still enjoy the things that a typically developing kid would access, but it's been modified so that he can participate and he loves it. So you know, I help parents find soccer programs that are available to kids with disabilities, or art programs, or different kinds of things that are in the community. If I hear about them, I always tell my parents, hey, I saw this or that, and you might want to sign your child up for it. So it's we do a lot of that. And we also there not as much, but a couple of years ago, I was advocating for uh, improving access to the community, and the ADA has done a lot for that, and I know the APTA was a big part of that lobby to get the ADA passed. But there are still things that the community may not realize is an impediment to people with disabilities. So it is on us to make sure that our community will make everything accessible, because there's no reason it can't be. So it's making it accessible to people with disabilities also makes it more accessible to regular people, because you never know when you might break a leg and need that ramp, or
Hmm.
you might lose your if things are smooth, you're not going to even typically developing people are not going to trip as much. So it's kind of a one of those things that as a physical therapist you notice things that could be improved for the entire society, not just the disabled. Everybody benefits from it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really important point.